Greetings, unsettled souls. Welcome to the Correct Views. Sim, I be the Gangi doing political commentary for the Media Speaks. You might know me through Teddy Stick. You might know me through the Conservative Daily Post, blasting news. Well, friends, this is the Correct Views. Facebook and YouTube there. My YouTube channel on the HDAF, which is something new right there. Hello, welcome everyone. We're going to get right into the show. Again, remember, if you're listening to this, it's because somebody cared enough likely to share it. So please do so. And remember that you can donate at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com through PayPal. Listen to this, friends. Rescuers rush to unearth survivors in North Japan after earthquake kills 7. Now, this is dated September 6th. And don't zone out on me here. It's not that I'm giving you dated news. I'd never do such a thing. I'm just trying to prove a point here. And that is, how many of you remember that we were told in no uncertain terms that it was going to take about 40 years for us to be able, by us I mean humanity, Japanity, to be able to put the Fukushima plant into what is called cold shutdown. Basically to do something similar to what was done with Chernobyl in Russia. Now, the Soviet Union, it's not that easy, of course, because the Soviet Union is basically a frozen iceberg, and Japan, of course, is a very porous island. So you really can't use the same theory there, which is why they're having so much trouble. But we were told it was going to be, 40 years to be able to shut down Fukushima. Well, these are the kind of problems that we are having already. And I mean, this is 2011. So I mean, we're not near 40 years here. We haven't developed this new technology that we need to get close to it, because so far we can't. Yahoo! Rescuers were rushing to unearth survivors and restore power Thursday after a powerful earthquake jolted Japan's northernmost main island of Hokkaido, buckling roads, knocking homes off of their foundations and causing entire hillsides to collapse. Residents of Sapporo were shaken from their beds when a magnitude 6.7, that is not small, friends. Okay, that's not small. It might not be like the John Holmes of earthquakes, but it's not small. It struck the Hokkaido around 3:08 a.m. Video cameras showed cities going dark as the quake disabled power systems, leaving nearly 3 million households on the island without any juice. The island's only nuclear power plant, which was offline, switched to a backup generator to keep its fuel cool, and the regulators said there was no sign of abnormal radiation, a concern after a massive quake and tsunami in March, of course, caused the Fukushima meltdown in 2011. Now, let's pause there for 1 second and analyze something just a little bit, if we could. Saying that a plant is in cold shutdown with backup generators is like saying you're wearing body armor and you're going to battle. That's great. I encourage that. However, if Mother Nature is cruel enough, if the tidal wave hits as historically has happened frequently, Japan was created by an earthquake, it will be destroyed most likely by an earthquake. Once a meteor or something takes it out of the sky, it will be destroyed by an earthquake. Tidal waves. But they have there. Okay. Now it's like you have your battle armor on and you're going to fight a wrecking ball. If it hits hard enough, the fact that it's in cold shutdown is not going to do any good whatsoever. It's like putting aluminum foil around a grape and then stepping on it with a steel-toed boot worn by Shaq. Japan's meteorological agency said the quake's epicenter was 24 miles. It's 4 kilometers deep. And friends, this is going to keep happening. This is going to be an ongoing nightmare. So when those of us are out here telling you and warning you just how bad Fukushima is, it's not something that we do just to see how many clicks we can get. There's always pouring for that. Okay. But we do this because it matters. We do this because there's something of importance to be gathered. And there's more just in this show. Listen. Why is the mainstream media telling us that a giant West Coast tsunami might hit without warning in the US. Now, a lot of people don't understand that there very easily could be an American Fukushima. Now, some people say, wait a minute, hello, Greg, hello, Marvin. How could that be the case if the nuclear power plant isn't near an ocean? Okay, well, first of all, it's near an ocean, that's a given. California, up and down the East Coast, that's a given. The other way that this can happen is if the nuclear power plant is located near the dam. And there are a plethora of nuclear power plants in this country which are located near dams. Also, any act of God that damages the backup generators, now you've put a whole lot more bullets in the chamber. Right? You're playing a Russian roulette game, so to speak. Now you've made it absolutely caustic. And that's the best analogy I can give. That's why you tune in. And let this sink in. It's from Michael Snyder, End of the American Dream. Could you imagine the immense devastation that would take place if a giant wall of water 80 feet high slammed into the west coast of the United States? It may not happen today or tomorrow, but scientists assure us that it will definitely happen one day. And at this point, we are completely and utterly unprepared for such a disaster. The Ring of Fire is becoming increasingly active in 2018, and the death toll from the earthquake and tsunami just struck Indonesia is now above 1,300. And we all remember the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami that killed 200,000 people. So basically, the gist of it here is how bad is America in this? Well, Los Angeles Times reported that in Southern California, an earthquake could trigger an underwater avalanche in the Santa Monica Bay, producing a tsunami that would inundate low-lying areas of Santa Monica and the South Bay towns of Manhattan Beach, Hermosa Beach, and Redondo Beach, said Costas Sinocius, the USC Civil and Environmental Engineering professor and tsunami expert, the really cool guy whose name I just absolutely butchered. That's who that is. This is exactly the scenario we are afraid of in Southern California, he said, where we are going to get on-land earthquake, and the biggest shaking triggers a submarine landslide. This kind of nightmare, it's hard to prepare against. All right. Are you getting the point now? What do you think generators buried under mud are going to do? Shazam, Sparky. It's not going to do much except shut down, of course. And once that happens, and we are looking at a catastrophic situation that cannot be undone for millions or billions of years, depending on the half-life of the radio elements that were released into the environment, and of course, how much, for how long. Could you imagine what a disaster would mean for our nation? The experts tell us, this article says, that the odds of a major tsunami are actually greater farther up north. The Cascadia subduction zone is capable of producing magnitude 9 earthquakes. If you don't think that matters, Fukushima was a 9. And such an earthquake could send a wall of water up 80 feet slamming into the west coast. And King News here tells what that's going to be like in a minute. But I want to pause and remind some people that might not know this. I mean, those of you that do, just bear with me, it needs to be said. A 9 and a 9.1 that's done on what's called an order of magnitude. It's 10 times worse than a 9.1. So a 9 to a 10 is 100 times worse, not 10 times worse. I'm horrible at math, but I hope I did a good enough job with that you all know exactly what I mean. Like in Indonesia, Washington, according to King 5 News, is expecting to be hit by a far larger earthquake, a magnitude 9 off our coast. The earthquake could come to the Cascade from the Cascadia subduction zone, which runs from northern California to southern British Columbia. And instead of devastating 20-foot waves, the tsunami along Washington's coast is forecast to reach 4 times that height in some places. That would be 80 feet for those of you that suck at math worse than I do. I'm amazed I did it on my own. In such a scenario, thousands upon thousands of people would die, and the economic damage would be astronomical. And it's estimated that it would take up to 3 years to restore drinking water and sewer service to coastal areas, and the wreckage would be enough to fill 1 million refuse trucks. Now, remember also, there are still people in Fukushima that are living in the temporary housing. For whatever reason, They were not able to get on with their lives, and they are still living in what was supposed to be temporary housing. Now, you mean to tell me there aren't people here that would game the system that way if that were to happen? But the trouble would be the way the jet stream works. It would harm such a large number, such a large open area of the U.S. that it would almost be irrelevant what anybody did if they were anywhere near it. Cal State Fullerton professor Matt Kirby claims that it could happen relatively instantaneously. And there's links for all of this in the article. It's linked on Prison Planet too. Cal State Fullerton professor, of course, Kirby, who worked with the Leaper on the study, said that this sinking would occur quickly and likely result in California being covered by the sea. If something that would happen relatively instantaneously like that happened, probably today if it happened, you would see seawater rushing in. In other words, it would happen with little or no warning, and within only minutes between the shaking and the tsunami, it's possible no official warning at all would come. It was only about 10 minutes between the earthquake that first hit Palu, said Professor Pablo Ampuro. When an earthquake hits further in the ocean, of course, there's more time. Now, let me explain something to you here real quick, and of course, it talks about Yellowstone, which is its own risk. Let's listen to something that's very important to understand. When they're talking about burying California, becoming sunk into the ocean, there are a lot of people who say that that's absolutely impossible, or it's possible, but really that's a bit extreme. Okay, fair enough. Let's assume they're only 25% right. If the 100% of the prediction, if you will, if the whole prediction encompasses California falling into the ocean and they are almost entirely wrong, 25% of California severely affected. And that's if we listen to the naysayers and assume that they're mostly wrong. Again, we're assuming that experts are mostly wrong in the predictions of what an earthquake, how strong it is, and what it could cause. I think that's being more than fair. Guys, we got one more for you to get to, and of course, it is the dumbdee of the day. Now, I'm going to let you guys figure out exactly why this is the dumbdee of the day. I'm pretty sure most of you who are regular listeners will be able to figure it out rather quickly. Screen share for those of you on YouTube. From EcoWatch. Stay with me here. Let's see how long it takes you to figure out why it got the dump. As 1.5 million flee Hurricane Florence, worries grow over half a dozen nuclear power plants in the storm's path. Yep, you're figuring it out now. They don't worry about it before it happens, even though there have been people giving warnings the exact same way that I am giving warnings now. Hello, Steve. The same way that I am giving warnings about nuclear power stations now and the earthquakes and what they can cause in relation to them. Rather than worry about this then, they worry about it once Hurricane Florence comes. Now, I know a lot of you listening, you're like, Sam, who cares? It's over. I'm not talking about what the hurricane itself was. I know Michael's forming. I get it. Sooner or later, one of these nuclear power plants are going to get mowed over. They're going to make the last Ronda Rousey fight look like the Saturday morning cartoons. And nobody seems to care, which is strange because normally, and I get all kinds of grief because I'm Joe Libertarian. I proudly support Mr. Trump, but I said long and hard that he's not anti-nuclear enough. This is where a lot of my liberal and more green friends, I would think, would be hitting share like crazy because this really is huge. And when are they worrying about it? What are they worrying about? Look, I'll tell you when they're worrying about it. As the storm's coming, North Carolina and South Carolina, the region facing the possibility of catastrophe should the storm damage one or more of the nuclear power plants which lie in the potential path, which mankind has managed to build nuclear power plants where tidal waves have historically and geologically provable have always come. Yeah, that's wise. As the Associated Press, as Rush says, reported on Monday, the storm's potential path includes half a dozen nuclear power plants, pits holding coal ash and other industrial waste, and numerous eastern hog farms that store animal waste in massive open-air lagoons. Now, all right, I get it. That can be cleaned up much easier, but you can't even see radiation. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You sure as hell can't clean it up. You can wash it off a building and into the ground. Now, the building's not as radioactive. The ground's more radioactive. You can take the dirt away, but now all you've done is you've taken radioactive dirt and you have a radioactive digging machine for all time. So that's not an idea. The plans thought to lie in the path of the hurricane, which is expected to make landfall, of course, in the south. You guys know where it hit. Include the North Carolina Brunswick Nuclear Power Plant, the Southport Duke Energy Suit and Steam Plant in Wilmington, and South Carolina VC Summer Nuclear Power Station in Jenkinsville. So if you live there, you might want to listen to what I'm saying and be a little bit more prudent with the information than many of you have been. Otherwise, you might be sitting together, glowing by the comfort of the dog. Florence will approach the Carolina coast Thursday night into Friday. Of course, we all know exactly when it was going to hit and what it did and what it left behind. Okay, you get it. It did not hit the nuclear power plants. But that's like saying that you jumped off a building and happened to land in a bush. Therefore, jumping off the building isn't dangerous. But you're going to keep jumping off the building all the time, because hurricanes keep happening all the time. I know what the news likes to make it sound like, there's a hurricane in Florida, like it never happens. No, always happens. Hasn't always happened. There hasn't always been people stupid enough to build nuclear power plants in these areas. Thank you for listening to the show, friends. Good night. God bless. This is The Correct Views. Please donate at thecorrectviews@hotmail.com through PayPal. Good night, friends. God bless. Thanks again for listening.